Welcome. My bad. I didn't know I was muted. Welcome. Thank you this morning. Thank you for showing up whenever you're showing up. I think I might begin to drop more than one video a week. So there's no telling when you're going to see this video. So this may not necessarily be a normal Monday morning check-in. As a matter of fact, I think I want to kind of do some evergreen content. What I mean by that is content that's going to live beyond the moment. As we are in this election cycle, a lot of the focus is on the federal elections, as it should be. The presidential elections are pretty important, and I was rude to me. I apologize. Um, but I think beyond the presidential elections, we have to begin to realize that the process doesn't stop on November 3rd, right? November 4th, we should be launching registration campaigns. There are a number of important elections going on in 2021 that we need to be activating people for. And so I think before I ran for office, I really didn't understand the importance of local politics, right? When I ran for office, I ran because it was having a direct impact on the neighborhood I was from. And I felt like the policies that were being crafted were landing, differently on the people who weren't crafting them, right? So with that being in mind, I just want to remind people that when you think about your school taxes, when you think about, when's the last time, the president has talked about school taxes? When's the last time the president has talked about how much your sanitation costs, or how much does the city spend on mental health as part of the public safety budget as opposed to just law enforcement? Right. So those conversations are had at a local level, at a municipal level. And that's why it's important for you to be active and to be engaging. Just like there are federal laws, there are also municipal ordinances, there are resolutions that most city council folk, they haven't been motivated to move. There's a political will to pass these things, but not to implement these items or these vehicles or these instruments. And that's where you come in, right? And so today, I'm trying not to have these long videos because I know, folks don't want to hold their phones for a long time. But I want to kind of talk about or run through some of the things, right? So in 2021, right, we have several elections going on that's going to be important, right? In San Antonio, the city manager, council managers going on there. There's a mayor race happening in Seattle. There's a mayor race happening in Georgia. There's a mayor race happening in Cleveland, Ohio. There is a council manager race going on in North Carolina. There's a mayor race happening in Jersey City. So as you understand, the mayors, as you watch during COVID, how much Mayor de Blasio had an impact on how shelter in place is being implemented, right? Which may or may not have contributed to the loss or saving of lives. So after the municipal elections, there are state executive elections. What I mean by that is governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, and some down ballot stuff, right? So your governor, as you know, as you have seen over the period of COVID, how important a governor's response to COVID has been to saving lives. When I lived in Texas, it was a little bit different than being here in Jersey. In Jersey, it felt like the governor did not have to pander, if you will, to political will, as opposed to being in Texas, where, Texas being a Republican state and Governor Abbott kind of having to fall in line with the rest of the party, right? And so I think our response to shutting down the government, our response to shutting down transportation. And yes, businesses were lost. Even in my neighborhood, I see the impact. However, lives were a bit more endangered. The impact was a bit more heavier, and so response was necessary. And I think it gave the rest of the country a playbook to run by. Anyway, beyond all of that, those elections are happening in 2021. And in some of those races, you know, you've got several legislative elections happening as well. And what I mean by legislative, of course, is state senators and state representatives. Um, those races are happening. Lieutenant gubernatorial races are happening in 2021. Um, there is also ballot measures. And what I mean by ballot measures, those are the items where, you know, either the governor or the legislator have decided to let the people decide on it. And so those ballot measures often are ignored by people and they kind of count on that, right? So when they make a decision, it absolves them of the ramifications if things don't go as the plan is, right? They have something to say, well, the people voted on it, as opposed to being strong leaders and deciding to push a certain piece of legislation. At times, it's often left to ballot measures. So that's happening in 2021. There's also state judicial races as well as school board races, right? And we all know the importance of school, as we have all dealt with, you know, having to homeschool in these periods, and maybe particularly either having strong school board leadership or weak leadership. Some of us have experienced what we can obviously see are budgetary issues and concerns of what kind of equipment our children are using. Of course, there's been a strain on folks' Wi-Fi, and those, you know, students and families that may not be able to afford Wi-Fi. How is their learning impacted, and what can the school board do to help alleviate some of that pain on these families? And so this is why down ballot races, voting outside of just the federal pipeline is important. Not that, you know, this Tuesday, you should have already voted this weekend. I know you voted this weekend because I saw the line, especially, and shout out to Texas for doing the voting in Harris County and staying in line as long as you did. Matter of fact, shout out to everyone that stood in line over the weekend to make sure your vote counted. From what, you know, I'm getting, the information is that this is one of the most robust turnouts that has happened in a long time. So I want to encourage folks to look beyond just this election. We need to be thinking about registering people to vote coming up in 2021. As I said, November 4th, you know, that should definitely be the date where we say, hey, we're going to start our registration campaign. Vote, you know, a conviction, register with conviction. Make sure you are putting pressure on jail officials to adhere to the electoral processes. Make sure that they are well trained. And if they're not, you should be organizing trainings with formerly incarcerated people, people who are directly impacted by the criminal justice system. And you should be going into jail, prisons, and detention centers where people are allowed to vote. And you should be training the staff while you're registering people to vote and making sure that when these elections come around in 2021, that we are geared up and ready to participate, activate, and organize. All right. So listen, thank you so much as always for attending and paying attention. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. You know, share it with somebody if you like the content. You know, a good share will go a long way. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Hit that little button, that little bell on the side that gives you a notification when we post a new video. As I said, we're gonna, you know, we're keen on producing more content so that as we are transitioning from 2020 and thinking about 2021, we really want to be strategically planning what kind of reentry opportunities. And that's why I'm leaning into voting, right? Because I want us to expand our thinking on reentry. Whereas housing is important, employment is important, healthcare is important, a lot of the ways to undergird those tactics is what a strategy of putting the people in place is going to fund those efforts, right? So just beginning to look at this whole reentry thing again as not an afterthought of people leaving prison, but as a way to keep people out of prison and shrinking our reliance on the prison system. All right, thank you guys so much. Follow me on Twitter, same name, Louis Conway Jr. If you haven't done so already, I'm on LinkedIn and also on IG, Louis Conway Jr. All right, appreciate you guys so much. Have an amazing rest of your day. Do something good for somebody and yourself.